Hi, yes, I think I can now hear you. All good, thank you.
I'm sorry? Okay, okay. You're welcome.
Yes, I am. Good morning. Yes, I have a bit of a cold, so.
Anton, you're on mute if you're talking.
I have just been talking to myself for the last few minutes, haven't I? Because I've just realized my mic was not on. So let me restart again. Apologies, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to Startup Product and Tech Q&A. This is our 165th session. We're here to help startups with whatever questions you may have as you build your early stage product and technology. Your questions today can be on anything to do with building your early stage. It could be from your product roadmap to your design to your prototype to your landing pages or building an app or full stack or low to no codes, automation, tech debt. Did I mention MVP, and anything in between or beyond for that matter? There are no wrong questions and there's no need to be shy. We'll only be here though for the next 52 minutes. So if you do want to ask our amazing panelists anything, you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's an audio only call. And for those of you that are on the live streams, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please be aware that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions there live. So again, if you do want to ask our panelists anything, and by the way, there are no wrong questions, all you have to do is join us here on Microsoft Teams. Being audio only means you can join us from anywhere via any platform or design. There are links on the live streams, but if you can't find it, simply go onto our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Scroll down a little bit, you'll find Startup Product and Tech Q&A 165. Click join, it's a quick registration. That gets you a link to your email, and through that link, you can then join us here on Microsoft Teams. And again, once you're here, simply drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic and you can ask our team. You see, unfortunately, over 90% of startups fail. And the top three reasons for that are: 1, market fit; 2, running out of money; and 3, not having the right people. Hence, there couldn't be anything more important, especially on that number 1 reason, i.e. market fit, than you being able to build your early product or tech right. So hopefully we will only be able to help you to survive today, but maybe we can even come up with some things that you may thrive. So the way this is going to work out is we'll go through some quick introductions. Then I'll ask the panelists for their sort of main do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage product and tech. And then we'll open it for questions until the end, from the founders, that is. By the way, if your questions today are not related to product or tech, please save them for the other events we run. Mondays is talent, Tuesdays, as you can see today, it's product and tech. Wednesdays it's growth, Thursdays it's fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK startup law, and third Friday of each month it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and they're all available for you to register on via our website, startuptoscaleup.club. And actually, when you're there, you may also want to join our community on WhatsApp. We've got some nice groups of founders, operators, investors, and obviously our amazing panelists as well. So without further ado, my name's Anton Call. I'm an Albanian in London working with startups normally right after they get investment. I embed within their teams and help them hire and keep the right people. I also do some growth advisory work with a few other startups and accelerators. And lately, I've been helping some angels and family offices with their due diligence and assessment. Maybe we can go to Tom, then Eugenio, then Afonso, please.
Sure. Hi there. My name's Tom Green. I'm the co-founder and CEO of VertiCode. VertiCode is a MVP studio, so we specifically work with founders and occasionally businesses who are diversifying their product ranges, but founders predominantly who are launching new products, specifically they're pioneering lean product development, so helping them scope out and understand what they need to be solving with their first products and then getting that to market quickly and affordably so they can then get through that, start that process of iteration and product growth through learning from their customers. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Eugenio Galiotto, and I'm a fractional CTO and serial founder. I've been part of environments like Entrepreneur First, and I've co-founded a startup in the Bay Area. And currently, I focus on generative AI, agentic AI, and I've built some agents in industries like real estate and fashion. And yeah, today I continue my fractional executive role mainly.
Hi, good morning. I first apologize for my voice. I got a cold. My name is Afonso. I'm a lead product designer at Sneak, a cybersecurity company, specifically application security. I've specialized in designing software, mainly enterprise software, and with a major focus on cybersecurity, developer tools, and some experience in banking as well.
That is amazing. Thank you very much to all three of you, gentlemen. Really appreciate that. Well, hopefully the others are getting ready to join us here live instead of the live streams. I'm sure you've come across plenty of stuff that you've been impressed, but also some horrible stories out there in terms of building early stage. What are your do's and don'ts? Let's see if we can think of one do and one don't each, and let's not use the same logic for both if we can, please, gentlemen. What is one really important do and one important don't? I guess we can go in the same way we went for the introductions for now. So Tom, Eugenio, and then Afonso, please.
Sure. Yeah, I think I think the big do, and I think although this sort of sounds like commercial advice, it really is product advice, is make sure that you as the founder or the person who is talking to the customers in the early stages, whether that be through when you're doing sales calls or general just discovery, making sure you actually have that visibility and you're the one interacting with your clients so that you can have that insight as to what's working, what's not, and you can be the one who takes that guidance and drives it into your vision for the product. And in terms of don'ts, I think this is something which I've actually been working with a lot of founders recently who have got a bit caught up in this, and so it's something that's fresh on my mind, is don't get too caught up in the early stages in every eventuality of how your product might be used. And I think what I mean by this is don't get too caught up thinking about edge cases which might arise 1 or 2 or 3 years down the road in terms of the way you're using and interacting with your product, but really try in those early stages to focus on your core ICP, and although that might change over time, I think the not being distracted by people who aren't going to be your ideal customers is a really important way of keeping momentum in the early stages. So that's my do and my don't.
So the do is about focusing. So do focus on customers, markets, opportunities, in a way that is more like the Steve Jobs one, in which you try to say no to things you really love in order to be effective on the really important things. So focus is crucial, I would say, because too many companies, whether early stage or not, they try to diversify too much their effort in anything. And being very focused changes everything, allows you to build a deeper connection in your brain and understand what you're doing way better than many others. The don't is about don't compromise on the wrong people, just to move fast So wrong investors, wrong developers, wrong executives of any kind, because that compromise is going to be costly, especially if you grow, because it's essentially accepting the wrong people that will accept the wrong people, and this will extend with the growth of the company.
I'll say do draw inspiration from other products, but don't copy and paste. I've seen that quite a bit. I've worked with some founders, and it's very easy, especially technologists, to get quite excited with the technology like we use ourselves on the day-to-day basis, and where it's 100% great to draw some inspiration out of those things. Be very mindful of trying to copy and paste, and just because you've seen something works nice or is quite slick on Apple doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work on your product for a variety of things. One, it might not even be well designed or the best developed thing. To your audience could be completely different. So do draw inspiration from a multitude of tools and even competitors, but be very mindful of just copying and pasting exactly as it is.
Well, thank you very much for that, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. We'll go on now to some questions that were sent in. I've put one in the chat and I'll read it out loud for those on the live streams, which again, I'd like to remind that we are unable to monitor your questions live if you're on the live stream. So whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please go onto our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Find today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 165. Click join. It's a quick registration. That gets you a link to your email. And through that link, you can join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you can join us from anywhere via any platform or device. Now, in terms of the next question, this is our marketplace app in Liverpool allows users to buy and sell vintage clothing. But we face challenges with platform-specific payment integrations across web, iOS, and Android. This inconsistency has led to complaints about payment failures and confusion around refunds. Could you provide advice on harmonizing payment systems across platforms without compromising security? And are there frameworks or tools that simplify cross-platform payment consistency? That's interesting. Maybe we can start with Eugenia, then we'll go on to Afonso, and then Tom. What are your thoughts on this, gentlemen?
Well, I think it's about the philosophy of any payment provider system. For example, we know that Stripe has a strong philosophy in terms of integration. So if something goes wrong with the players like this, maybe there's something to review on the product side rather than on the payment provider side. So I try to go first principles on each step of the payment, and I will try to re-engineer that from that point, and possibly reach out to the payment providers. As I said, Stripe is usually one of the best ones in terms of like integrations. So it's about getting support from them as well.
I'm afraid I don't think I have anything here. To be honest, I don't have a lot of experience with payment providers.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Tom.
Yeah, I think I would say that, I mean, it's interesting. I think it's interesting and kind of fairly unusual in modern day applications that you wouldn't have a payment provider, a cross-platform payment provider from the outset. So it'd be interesting, I guess, from their perspective to think back as to why that happened in the first place, or what the goal was between that. But I think, like Eugenio mentioned, a provider like Stripe, who exactly offer cross-platform integrations. We've built, I don't know, probably maybe 100 platforms that use Stripe, and it's pretty rare that stuff goes catastrophically wrong. There might be hiccups here and there, but in general they're pretty good. So I think with something like payments, there are pretty good best practices out there. You shouldn't need to be reinventing the wheel to do this, but I think using a cross-platform provider like Stripe is a pretty safe bet, unless, which I can't think of off the top of my head, unless there's a reason that they haven't done that from the outset. But I can't think of why that would be to begin with. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Thank you very much for that, gentlemen. I think we should move on to our next question. I'll put that in the chat right now. Well, there's a few questions that we've received, and it's not always easy to decide which one to. I always try and do it based on when they arrived, but sometimes you have to change the order. So this one is a mobility tech founder. I think she came through the Go London scheme. So mobility tech founder, London, they're at seed stage. She used to be an urban planner. The problem is building a ride-hailing service focusing on electric and shared vehicles to reduce congestion and emissions. So I'm assuming that's the app or whatever they're building. So the question she has is, we need to optimize our platform's real-time route planning algorithms for electric vehicles. Should we invest in building proprietary routing algorithms or integrate existing APIs like Google Maps? How can we ensure our system takes into account charging stations, locations, and what are the risks of relying on third-party mapping solutions? Interesting. Maybe we can go on to, let's start with Ares, then Tom, and then Eugenio, please. What would you do here, gentlemen?
I think I would say it depends on the stage you are in. So if it's early stage, still proof of concept, I would lean towards using existing technology already. It'll be less tech intensive. It'll allow to prove the concept, prove it to investors, and get even internally, if you have a team, I'm assuming already, get the team to think more conceptually of the things they have to do without spending too much on like the infrastructure. And I think the advantage there would be speed and reliability, right? So Google, for example, will have already handled a bunch of things that you might not even accounted for. The downside potentially is some of the logic that you talk about there, like the EV logic and so on. So you kind of have to balance between the two. I wouldn't necessarily say one is better than the other. They could both be good options depending on the stage they're in. But if it's early stage, seed stage, I would lean towards using existing technology.
Yeah, I think that was I think I echo that sentiment a lot. Is if you're still in the stage of getting early adopters onto this, I think especially with a concept like this, there's always going to be an element of also proving out the concept, proving that this actually is something that people want to use in reality and things like that. rather than it being just kind of a nice idea, which on the surface it definitely sounds like a good idea that people get invested on the service, but you want to make sure they actually want to use it. Definitely go down the route of using existing technologies, and as Alfonso said, the reliability will be something which you really benefit from. I think the obvious risks are just that these well, in 9 times out of 10 when you're integrating with existing APIs or like in this case third-party mapping solutions, is that they have been created not with your specific use case in mind. So that's a consideration. And in this case, for instance, your specific question around ensuring that charging station locations are taken into account. I don't know off the top of my head if Google Maps API provides that, as I'm not an electric car driver, unfortunately. But my suggestion would be that it's probably unlikely that it does. And I guess alongside that, there's probably other things to consider there as well. I don't know if you're taking into account things like congestion zone or whatever it may be. I think there's a few sort of pieces within there that you just consider that this API has not been designed to do this exact thing. So there might be some work you have to do on your side of things to make it relevant. And then in the longer term, when you prove that there is demand for this and prove that people want to use it, you can then start to build your own version of it. But in the meantime, the reliability of a platform or integration like Google Maps API would be really beneficial, but it's definitely not the thing which I'd recommend spending all of your resource and time on in the early stages. Instead, make sure that there are people who want to use this, and that you're kind of starting to build up a really good critical mass of feedback, and both positive and negative, or both positive and constructive from early users. Absolutely. That's for me.
I totally agree with the 2 previous answers. And there's one additional consideration. Let's say, for example, you need a feature that normally is impossible to build alone, like, for example, the traffic estimation, which is something that Google does quite easily thanks to their, of course, huge amount of data, real-time data on traffic and other aspects, or like a road that's closed or whatever. And this makes a big difference, especially at the beginning, because you don't have, of course, usually at the beginning, the resources to do the same. So I wouldn't bother with these things unless it becomes a real big problem. If the API cost is that much that the business is not sustainable, that's more a business issue, probably. Something that can be probably negotiated with some enterprise like plan with Google. But the point is that at the very beginning, you will spend more time and effort doing that rather than just focusing on the business aspects that will make the API sustainable.
Oh, that is some pure gold. Thank you very much for that, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. I guess a quick reset of the conversation for those of you that have just tuned in. This is Startup Product and Tech Q&A. We're doing this to help founders with whatever questions you may have in terms of that journey of yours as you build your early stage product or tech. We're taking questions on anything to do with that. So let's say anything from your product roadmap to your prototype design, maybe your app, your landing page, full stack, tech debt, automation, low to no code, launching your MVP, and I guess anything else in between or beyond for that matter. There are literally no wrong questions, and there's no need to be shy to learning curve for us all. So if you do have any questions, please remember that we are unfortunately unable to monitor your questions live on the live streams, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. So if you want to ask our amazing panelists, you'll have to join them here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you can join us from anywhere via any platform or device. The idea is quite simple. You go onto our website, startuptoscaleup.club. You click join. It's a quick registration. When you go to the site, startuptoscaleup.club, you scroll down a little bit to find Startup Product and Tech Q&A 165. There you click join. It's a quick registration. That gets you a link to your email. Then through that link, you can tune into our call here in Microsoft Teams audio. Once you're here, simply drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic and you can ask our team whatever you want. Now, if your questions today, though, are not on product or tech, please save them for the other conversations we run. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of each month is UK startup law. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And actually, you can register, as I said, via any of those sessions onto our site, startuptoscaleup.club. But you can also join our WhatsApp community. We've got some amazing groups of your fellow founders and investors and operators, and of course, our brilliant panelists. But I'll read the next question now, and it's in the chat so the panelists can read it too. This is a tech for good in Belfast. They're at seed stage. He's got a social entrepreneurship background. So they're trying to build a community platform that supports local initiatives for social impact. This question is, we're debating how to encourage user participation and engagement on our platform. Should we gamify the experience with rewards for contributions or focus on providing valuable resources for community leaders? How do we ensure our platform remains inclusive and accessible to all community members? So I guess two questions. One, gamification, and two, accessibility. Maybe we can start with Tom, then Eugenio, and then Afonso. What would you do here?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because gamification has, been successful in multiple platforms out there in terms of driving behaviors in people which they've struggled with before. So it's the classic ones are around things like learning activities, things like financial discipline, things like that, where people have struggled. They've gamification in some applications has been successful in getting users to be diligent with that. I think it's an interesting question when it comes to rewarding contributions or things. I think obviously there's not a huge amount of huge amount of information here about the way this platform works, but it seems to me like there's some kind of beneficial activities, local initiatives taking place through the platform. And so, of course, having some kind of reward system for something like that is positive. I think you may struggle to get people to take what I call kind of a slightly larger actions based on basic gamification. So you'll know, or many people will know, that a lot of gamification platforms are based on little but often small actions, but taken quite often. So a small amount of learning activity every day, a small amount of savings taken regularly for kind of fintech platforms. The idea of gamifying it so that people are willing to undertake big kind of actions, so things like organizing local initiatives or activities for good, maybe a bit more difficult to achieve with your typical sort of badge system, things like that. So you may want to explore more kind of I guess real world rewards, if that's the right way to say it. But I think overall, again, going back to where this person is in their journey, I think the absolute earliest stage for this is to see what kind of demand there is for this, or demand there is to undertake these activities before there's any gamification. I think, and this may well be an activity that this founder's already undertaken, but really gauging the sense and appetite for this before you introduce any gamification, I think, is really important. Do people want to undertake these activities, or do they want to get better at doing these things? And the gamification is something that's going to help them along the way, because if there isn't an appetite for it in the first place, gamification itself is probably not going to be the silver bullet here. Rather, it'll be about finding a way to really want people to undertake these actions. And in terms of how ensuring the platform remains inclusive and accessible to all community members, I think there's really good guidance out there in terms of accessibility for users with different conditions or ability to use technology. And so accessibility guidance is out there, but I think, again, being quite deliberate with that is probably going to be important, rather than just sort of spending huge amounts of time and resource making this a platform which doesn't serve its core purpose but is very inclusive. I think I would probably suggest that the other way around is the more valuable way for all users on the platform, is to make sure you're providing a platform which provides its core value, and you can do some testing with that. And once you know that the process you're running through the platform is that which is delivering value, then go through that process absolutely of making sure that it's accessible and inclusive to all those who want to be able to access it. So I'm not sure if I fully addressed the second question, but maybe one of the other guys could also kind of shed some light on that. So that's, yeah, my thoughts on gamification more generally.
That's good, thank you, Tom. I think we said Eugenia and then Alfonso, if I'm not mistaken. Go on.
Yep. So first of all, I think that the gamification is a bit overrated today, because it's used a bit too much to try to solve problems. In fact, we see many gamified experiences that are not well done, and in fact, they are totally useless, even worse. So I would start with the fundamentals. So yeah, try to see what's the real value in every activity. The gamification should be a thin layer on top of it, just to make it a bit better, just to, create a connection with your past activities, but not the solution. It's just a thin layer to improve the experience. And there's a very interesting book, because this seems like something that could involve network effects. This book is called The Cold Start Problem by Andrew Chen. And it may be useful when you have these network of gigs or activities or whatever, and you may try to address them that way. So before gamifying real interest, passion of people towards the app. And about accessibility, it's really a design issue, essentially. The easiest way is to ask people with these problems, to give their own experience, ask their own opinions, or to just have one UI design expert and get a review of your accessibility paths, and then ask to improve them.
I'll start with the second question, actually. So usually when we look at accessibility and inclusive, accessibility can be more from a tech point of view, right? And it encompasses everything from the way you code it, so that it can take in, say, keyboard readers and things like that, to the UI, so that, say, for example, the color scheme is suitable to colorblind people. So this aspect, the more technical one, I think, to one of the guys' points, you might not need to invest too much, right? Maybe the coding aspect of it, though it tends to be standard good practice to build it like that from the get-go. If you can, great. If you have to do an overall, potentially not really necessary. What I would say is, and that touches a bit more on the inclusive side of things, is really try to understand who's your audience. And then based on that, you can work on things that make it more inclusive. And this could be things like the copy, just like the narrative, the way it's written, the font sizes, for example, right? So if the target audience is not that young, right, all of these two things that I mentioned, they'll make a massive impact, right? And making it more inclusive. And the same goes for even the kind of visuals and the type of media that you use, right? If you like motion or static imagery, this is where I would start. I would really try to understand who's the audience, what do you know about them, things like age group and background and so on, how technical they are. And then that helps make it a bit more inclusive. And then accessibility wise is the technical aspect. In terms of gamification, I share some of the thinking, the earlier thinking. And what I would say most importantly is what type of engagement. That's where I would start. Like usually like working in growth teams and so on, the challenging thing is really break down those metrics. So that's what I would suggest you start. So you want more engagement in the application. What does that engagement look like? Is it downloads? Is it sign-ins? Like what is the thing that you're trying to drive? And then look at ways at breaking a big problem into smaller problems, right? So if you want more, say, monthly active users, so that is a good thing. Or in your case, I think it was initiatives, like more initiatives created. Try to break it down, right? So like see if people start creating something like in a funnel, start creating something but leave it halfway, right? Or creating another problem, but then you don't get participation. So really try to narrow down the problem a bit more, and then look at strategies to drive that engagement, which could be gamification, could be other ones. I think for that you can look at engagement loops. The idea that there's always a trigger, and then there's some sort of investment, which is what are you asking the user to do, and then there's a reward. So the reward can be like a gamified reward, but could be something more subjective. But again, that's where I would start to really try to understand what does that engagement look like, and how you could potentially track it quantitatively, because the last thing you want to do is try to invest a lot in gamification or a bunch of other strategies, but never really know whether they work, or just like have a sense for it. You really want to be confident on whether something has worked or not, and why.
Yeah, thank you very much, gentlemen. Alfonso, just before we move on to the next question, do you have in mind any decent articles or even books for that matter on engagement loops that people can read, and anything that you think may help people?
Yes, there's one called Nudge, which is an interesting one. And then I believe there's one called Loop as well. But you should be able to find it. Engagement loops. It's something that is written about at length as well in behavioral economics. So there are this is more that economic side of things, but there is a book called Predictable Irrational, I think, Predictably Irrational, which is already an old book, but it's still quite interesting.
Can I ask you a favor? I'm going to post in the chat now a link to the LinkedIn live stream. If you wouldn't mind, either now as we go on to the next question or after, to just comment underneath with some of those suggestions. I think people would find them interesting. Would that be all right, Alfonso?
Sure thing, I will do.
Good man, thank you very much. Right. Okay, we now have 15 minutes to go. I think we've gone through, what, 3 questions so far. So probably we've got time for another 1 or 2 questions. I can see my other phone pinging, and it's from LinkedIn and Instagram, funny enough. So just a reminder, if you are either commenting or sending messages with questions and you're following via the live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please bear in mind that we're unfortunately unable to monitor your questions there live. We're here today to help you with building your early stage product or tech. There are no wrong questions. There's no need to be shy. This is on anything to do with early stage product or tech. So product roadmaps, prototypes, designs, testing, low to no code, automation, full stacks, building your app or just a landing page, or launching your MVP, and anything in between or beyond for that matter. this is the place to be. Now, if you are on the live streams and you want to join us here, we are on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you can join from anywhere via any platform or device. Simply go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Scroll down a little bit. You'll find today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 165. You click join. It's a quick registration that gets you a link to our to your email, and then through that link you can tune in. But let's now go on to the fourth question. This is Tech for Neurodiversity founder. They're based in London, seed stage. She's got a special needs school background, and the problem that she's trying to resolve is creating an app that provides tailored learning resources for neurodiverse children. The question she has is, we want to ensure our app delivers personalized content effectively. Should we use AI to adapt resources based on user engagement, or rely on user feedback for content updates? How do we ensure our technology supports diverse learning styles whilst being easy to navigate for both children and parents? So maybe we can start with Eugenio, and I'm assuming you might want to focus on the tech sides that is required for the questions that she's put. And then maybe we can go to Tom, and last but not least, Afonso, which I'm assuming will focus more on the product side. Fellas?
So I will try essentially to reduce everything to a vector of dimensions. So you can have like every content can have like, I don't know, 10, 15 dimensions, where each dimension is, for example, like a number from 0 to 1 that represents a specific aspect of that content. It can be like, for example, likability or about this, or it can be tags, it could be whatever. But essentially with these vectors, you can run a cosine similarity, which is a way to determine the product of these vectors and get a score. And so ideally, what you want to have is a vector with these dimensions for the user, a vector for the content, and you just try to adapt these vectors. In the case of the contents, of course, you try to set it manually. In the case of the users, there may be automated strategies. But in the end, when you want to recommend content, you just need to run these cosine similarity of vectors, and you get the score. And the highest score, of course, is the best recommendation, or the highest scores in general are the best recommendations. I wouldn't go for AI, because with the vectors, you obtain really good power if you design the vectors properly. And the AI solution will take, of course, specialized expertise and knowledge that will have a cost that you can easily skip with this initial trick.
Yeah, I think that's, I'm sure, a much more technical explanation than I'm able to give. But I think I would just suggest that we worth the founder thinking about the content themselves, the content itself, and the purpose of that content. So it's interesting with a platform like this. There's obviously, there's twofold aims of delivering content. First is to drive engagement. You want your users to be engaging with the content. You want them to be interested in the content to the point where they're wanting to stay on the platform and engage with it further. But obviously there is the other side of it, which is that the content needs to be effective, and you'll similarly end up having issues with retention of customers and kind of overall reputation of your product if you're not able to actually deliver helpful content, or content which is effective in delivering the right education. And so I just think when you're considering that question of should you use AI to adapt resources based on engagement, or rely purely on user feedback, my suggestion would be something you probably want to overlay in here a little bit, whether you're using AI or using direct user feedback, is some sort of expertise input. And it sounds like the founder themselves is an expert of sorts, but obviously if you're doing this on a slightly higher scale, you might want to just kind of consider bringing in other expert opinions as well to make sure that you're able to, whether you want to use, and I think this is probably a good example, as with many products, where this doesn't mean you necessarily need to turn this into an AI product, but you can definitely use AI to accelerate some of your processes here if you're looking to adapt content. But I think just making sure you have that check on that you're still delivering accurate, effective content, even if to drive engagement you're using AI to adapt it moving forward. But yes, I think in terms of ensuring technology supports diverse learning styles while being easy to navigate, obviously an iterative process. I think having a level of personalization there would be really important. But I think as with I'd say to kind of any client of ours who are building products which are delivering materials using AI, always make sure you have, at least in the early stages, some sort of oversight of that. Make sure that it's delivering it correctly and is relevant to what you're doing. So I think the third option, which isn't mentioned there, is kind of giving expert overlay of either of those processes. So that's just my thoughts there.
I'll start with the last one as well. How do we ensure our technology supports diverse learning styles while being easy to navigate for both children and parents? So this is a great design challenge. I would say that the really important thing here is try to understand whether, if we look at those two groups as like persona archetypes, as we would call them, like, do they do the same tasks, or is it fundamentally different ones? Because if it is fundamentally different, then you don't necessarily need to think about one style that serves them all. You probably shouldn't. I'm assuming, I don't know this field well, but I'm assuming like the children are the primary audience and the experience for them needs to be the most tailored. So it might just be that you might even have two modes of logging in or two ways, similarly, like similar to how some e-learning platforms might have like one mode for consuming content, like Udemy, for example, and another mode for creating that content. It could potentially be a similar parallel here, where like the children have one mode and the parents another one. Otherwise, you might just have to choose which one to prioritize, which seems like it is the children. And then when it comes to the technology, I wouldn't look at one or the other. I would always rely on user feedback, especially in a situation like this where it does seem like you really need to cater for this audience. So I would always rely on that feedback, understand how they are using it, and what's their take on it. AI might be good then to, if you want to generate more content or have recommendations more as a method to produce more content, but it will always, similar to like some of the quantitative data, it will always lack the why, right? The more subjective bit of information that you can get from good user feedback, right? Like good questions framed well, like open questions, not leading, tell you loads about the why of something, right? The why of a behavior.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We've got 4 minutes to go. Shall we go on to parting words, or shall we share one more question? What would you like?
I'm happy to do that. So I need to drop at 1 o'clock, Anton. But other than that, I'm kind of happy to do either, whichever is your preference.
All right. If it's a hard stop, then maybe we should just go on to some quick parting words. So why don't you start then, Tom, and then Eugenio, And last, Afonso, then please.
Yeah, I think the kind of my sort of passing words was something interesting I was reading the other day. Well, interesting. I was speaking with a friend about, was in those early stages, just kind of being hyper focused. And when one of the other hosts or experts here mentioned this morning about having focus, I think it's something really interesting that a friend of mine was talking about, was about in those early stages having the ability to blink yourself, which also means having the ability to ignore things which like little fires, and that could be in your product perspective, that could be from overall business perspective, but having that hyper focus. And I think, yeah, that advice of letting, in the early stages, letting small fires burn, and focusing on the things which are going to be make or break for your product and make or break for your startup overall is a kind of key piece. So that's kind of my parting word, and something which I've found interesting when I was speaking last week.
Thank you, Tom. Eugenia?
Well, I think that in general, like reading biographies helps a lot. This is a common trait of many entrepreneurs. This alone gives a lot of things about how to tackle challenges early on, especially. So this is the simplest initial advice I would share.
I hear you. Afonso? Thank you, Eugenia.
I'll touch briefly on the topic of AI. I think it was mentioned in a few questions, and of course, like it's a big thing. It's a big innovation. What I would encourage people to do is not necessarily like always look at it as a replacement for something, but look at it as a way to augment or optimize something that you're already doing or you need to do. So a lot of the things we spoke about here, you could do it, right? You can easily use one chat interface to create simple prototypes, right? So even I sometimes do it. I might ask it to create an interactive prototype for me, and then use something like a code sandbox, for example, and you get like something very quick that you can easily share with other people, and it's interactive and it has like a real feel to it. We spoke about here getting user feedback. You can use them for that as well. If you have a few questions in mind, you can ask an AI to say, okay, rephrase these in a non-leading way, for example, or you can even ask them to create a discussion guide. And these are ways like is helping you get that feedback, is helping you work on your application. It's not necessarily like it's not necessarily replacing or doing the work for you, but it's definitely helping you do a better work and in a much more efficient way.
Well, thank you, Afonso. Huge thanks to all three of you gentlemen. Really appreciate this. Thank you to everyone that tuned in today. Now, we're obviously grateful you tune into the live streams, but just a reminder that unfortunately, if you do that, we're unable to monitor your questions there. And also those of you that do send questions, thank you, but it would make for a much better conversation if you're here with us live on Microsoft Teams and it's an audio only call always. And two, you'd actually get most probably better responses, because then our amazing panelists can sort of go back and forth and clarify things and ask you questions as well. Nevertheless, thank you to everyone that tuned in today. A couple of things just before my parting words. Number one, we've got a specific group for our product and tech Q&A. I'll put the link in the chat for that. You can send questions ahead of each session. You can discuss stuff that was touched on during the Q&A. You can get help after the Q&A. You can connect with fellow founders and our panelists and other experts on product or tech. So please feel free to join that. Just a reminder that we run 6 regular sessions. Mondays it's talent, Tuesdays, as you saw today, it's product and tech, Wednesdays it's growth, Thursdays it's fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK startup law, and third Friday of each month is UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And you can register on any future session via our website, startuptoscaleup.club. As far as my parting words are concerned, just remember the startup journey can be both exciting but also quite challenging. So try to have some fun in the meantime and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. Otherwise, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for Startup Growth Q&A, where we'll try to help you go from zero to hero, really, in terms of making that money. That is at 12 UK time at noon, so please register for that. Otherwise, have a great afternoon, and God bless you all. Bye-bye for now.